Howdy y'all, it's the House of Kog, and it is episode number 10. Doad, 10, des, mewa, lahoch, 10, Jew. Alright, I hope you enjoy. Bon appetit and beso. So fleet update. So episode 10, you remember in episode 9, Jason we talked about a little bit of updates on things that were going on. One of the updates I have is that I actually ended up putting some 6x9s in the rear. I mounted them in a box too. They were actually Infinity speakers and they sound really nice in the box even without an amp. So here's a little footage from that. And here we have a 6x9 speaker box. I picked up some 6x9 Infinities to replace the old 6x9 Kenwoods I had. They were dead. The surrounds were completely falling apart and so on. But what I'm going to do to mount them, I'm going to use this bracket here. I'm going to measure the length here, correspond it with this here. So the idea again, have that guy here, that guy there, mount up from the 6x9, mount it here to the rear deck, and say a couple here, 1, 2, 1, 2. It's actually not that heavy. And it sounds nice. I'm actually pretty happy with the outcome of the sound. The boxes actually help out a lot too. Give a bit more punch, and I don't have to turn the volume as loud. And also, for as ice is concerned, in-car electronics, I'm also going to be installing a rear view camera into it. So kind of what I was talking about earlier a few episodes back, I want to also make it a bit more balanced, but also what I'm also trying to say is I'm also making it a bit more drivable and easier to drive. So I'm looking forward to that, because if you've ever driven one of these 66s, you cannot see out the back. They didn't care about conveniences like that, you could say, or usability. It just didn't matter. In fact, the side mirror for the passenger was an option. So it would have been nice to have one, but there you go. But backup camera, and I'm looking forward to that. Also, my friend has got his 4-post lift in, and I'll be installing the exhaust very shortly, and I'm looking forward to that. So just to give you a little update on that, so we got ceramic manifolds, ram horn manifolds, 2.5 outlets. I got those from Jegs. I went with the ram horns because instead of the headers, one for price, I got a lot cheaper than headers, but mainly headers from all my reading that I did versus the ram horns. You're only going to really see that power difference, maybe 8 or 10 horsepower more from basically the top end, mid to top end, and I'm not going to be running around 5,000 RPM all day long, and so that doesn't make any sense. The ram horns, however, they really show a good benefit down low and in the mid-range, so that was my use for that. Also, so coming out of the 2.5, it's going to go to X pipe like that. Going to come in, go into some Dynamax turbo mufflers. They go in this way and then out that way, and they're going to come out 90, 45, and they're going to be dual tips on the side just in front of the rear wheels. And so I'm looking forward to those few things. And right now I'm going to kick it over to Jason.
Man, that was fierce. Thanks for that, Jaime. And after a short break, welcome back to the House of Kog. I'm going to set you guys up for a little speed lapse here and go back in time a little bit and show you some of the footage that we've gotten and the time since we've been away trying to get Piper finished. During some of that, I had actually gotten the coronavirus, and we here at my house did. We all fortunately survived it. My grandma had the worst of it. She was in the hospital for literally an entire month. I was off work for a couple weeks, and my dad had mostly an asymptomatic case. But we're back, and I'm going to give you, like I said, some speed lapse footage of what we got while we were away. So I didn't get everything up to this point, but I did get some, and so that's what you're going to see now. As you can see here, I got Piper pulled out of the garage, and I've got her firewall painted, and I got her motor mounts pulled out. I'm going to take and pressure wash her front cross member and front frame and just try to get this a little bit clean because it's got a lot of cake on it. Like I said, I pulled these engine mounts out and you can see the level of dirt around it. Okay, so firewall's painted some of the cross member. I'm gonna clean up over there and get that taken care of, and then that spot right there. But these are gonna have to come off, and I'll paint those at that point because I got to get those ball joints back out, and because this one isn't good, that one over there is just garbage. So anyways, but I got the motor mounts changed. She had most likely her factory mounts, and they were absolutely garbage, and I'll show you that here in a second. But this one's not so bad to replace. That one was a nightmare. The access is just terrible, but I'm so fortunate that we had a distributor wrench, 9/16s, and I was able to get in there, and because I had fought for over an hour with the bolt on the left side, that one right there, to get out, or rather get on. And as it's a lock nut on the bottom, so it's in a real awkward place. And I found that after I got the nut on, I couldn't get it to tighten very well because I was trying to hold the wrench or the ratchet on the bottom with an extension and the wobble, and then reach around with another wrench or impact on the top, and it was just a lot to handle. anyways, I found we had a distributor wrench that was 9/16 and it literally fit right on, and I was able to get it on. So if you ever do these, you need a 9/16 angled distributor wrench. That saved my life. As you can see here, I've got the front plate on of the Lakewood blow-proof bell housing on. Got the new flywheel on. I got getting the clutch torqued down at this point in time, and just keep on going. Okay, after much work, engine's in. So I replaced the engine mounts on both sides and had a heck of a time getting it to line up. I was just all sorts of out of whack and kept trying to get, like, I'd get the mount, the engine side mount and the frame side mount lined up, and I couldn't get the bolt to get started. So anyways, had a couple mishaps, but it's on. Tip, what I ended up having to do is I got the driver's side going first, and in order, the frame side mount was too high on the mount, so I used the engine hoist here to hook onto just the right cylinder head, and then I lift up on it, and then that caused it to kind of shift a little bit and put my mounts right where I needed to be. But I ended up having to get new engine mount bolts. For some reason, my factory ones just did not want to work this time, but I got 2 new ones, and they both went in with almost no fuss. But I literally spent 2 days trying to get this thing in. So, but it's in, and now I've got the transmission on the transmission jack. And as you can see, I pulled the passenger side exhaust down and moved it over to the left some. But I got transmission on the engine, or on the transmission jack, and gonna give it a test run at getting in there. So, all right, now that that's out of the way, here's what we got going on. As you can see here, Piper is all back together. She's got her brand new valve covers on. I have another drop base there on order because when you close the hood, I'm having a clearance issue with the shaker to the bottom of the hood. So with all that being said, that's on order. And I got the really nice NGK plug wires on her. I got her brand new 900 CFM Quadzilla on, and she's ready for trial runs. So that's what we're going to be doing in the next. We're going to go out for a test and tune night, and I've taken her out for some very short trips, and she's running pretty good. So I'm going to start her up so you guys can hear her. Assure you, from my few test drives that I've taken her on, she is extremely rowdy. Just got to do some more dialing in, and I think we'll be good to go. Next, we're going to talk a little bit more about our Phoebe. Y'all have seen her once, so here she is again. A 1969 Pontiac Trans-Am Tribute. So she originally came from El Paso, Texas. Whenever I bought her from Gateway Classics in Tampa Bay, Florida. Now, there is some things that were done, or said rather, that she had, that she did not have, and we're gonna go over that here in a minute. But, so this car sat inside, as I was told, a museum for quite some time, with the engine that she has now, which is a Pontiac 350. She's supposed to have, as the ad stated, a Pontiac 400, but she did not. When she arrived, and I talked to them on the phone prior to purchasing, they said that she had a 400 Pontiac engine, but after she got here and started inspecting, I found that she indeed only had a 350. However, I was upset at the time about it. However, as you'll see here in a minute, I have a project for that to go in. So as you can see here, Phoebe was a factory AC car. I took not long after I got the car, and I had a heater hose blow on me. I took and pulled all the factory AC stuff out, and I sold it and used that to help me finish getting her really road ready. Been driving her pretty much every day. She's been my almost daily driver for the last year. So she's done really well. The 350 that's in here has been a great engine after getting its overheating issues fixed, and then the radiator blew because when the car got here, it had a blown head gasket, and so it was pumping compression into the radiator, and it blew the radiator. I got the head gaskets changed, intake gaskets, everything. She's been great, with the exception of, as you guys saw in a previous video, power steering leak. So we have taken and ordered, as of 2 days ago, I ordered an entire SureFit vintage air kit for her. She also has some lizard skin on the way that I'm going to take and coat the entire inside, the floor, the doors. I'm debating whether I want to take the headliner out. Not really sure on that one. But going to take and get her coated, so she will have a better chance of heat resistance here in the Texas sun. So let me start her up so you can hear her. Very smooth running car. So right now she's got the idiot lights on the gauge spot here on the left. When I got her, the fuel gauge read full. And literally the second time I drove her, I was starting to wonder, I feel like that should have been moving by now, but it is not. So literally about 5 minutes later, she started coughing and sputtering and ran out of gas. Fortunately, I was close enough to a place to get some gas. I took and added these mechanical gauges here. These are Equus gauges. I took and bought some interior paint from Ames and painted the gauge pods, so they would at least look stockish. As you can see here, she is a blue interior car, much like most all the Trans-Ams are. So that over there I need to replace. In the original ad, it did not show that that was damaged, but when she showed up, she was that way. That's not a big deal to fix. But I added the Sun Pro tack, or rather the Bosch Retro tack, like the Sun Pros, which will be eventually going to the car I'm about to show you, as I've also ordered a hood tack for this, Trans-Am style, and also another hood, because this one is fiberglass, that I do not want to have a fiberglass hood, and we're going to be getting that traded out for a steel hood. So, no, for those of you that are going to ask, I did not get a pre-purchase inspection before I got Phoebe. I incorrectly assumed that the seller, Gateway, who deals with thousands and thousands of classic cars, would be honest and correctly identify parts. I incorrectly assumed that they would have been able to correctly identify the engine and the other components. I did see in the ad that it was listed as a 4-speed auto, which I thought was weird. Then they told me that it was a turbo 350 transmission, pan. I was like, okay. And I asked them to look at the head numbers, the head casting numbers, and they couldn't get them to me. I asked them to look up on a Pontiac engine, on the front driver's side, if I'm not mistaken, is where you can find the engine size. They told me 400. It showed up, it is not a 400. But again, was upset about it at the time. However, I have really enjoyed having her, and I wasn't gonna let anything damage or tarnish my desire to have this vehicle that I'd worked so hard for, where I had finally gotten to have all three of the charmed ones. I know there's a fourth one. There's a plan for that will eventually happen. But anyway, so now let me introduce you to Prue. This is my 1956 Pontiac Chieftain Catalina Prue. I got her February 21st, 2016, and when I got her, she had not been on the road since 1972. She had been sitting in a field for 54 years, and what I was told was trees had grown all the way up around her, and the guy that I bought her from, he was a state trooper and seen her in El Paso area, which is also where Phoebe came from, as I was saying earlier. He got her and took her to a town north of where I live in Cedar Park called West Texas, and was going to do something with her, never did. Had her for about a year and then just stopped, because she was going to need more work than he really wanted to put in, and then he realized he couldn't find parts as easily as he could for a 56 Chevy. So here's what's going on now. As you can see, here she is the Chieftain Catalina. The Catalina models didn't have a center pillar, no B pillar, and they denoted these as the hardtop model. So it is very comfortable and nice to drive, very spacious. When you get in the car, it feels like there's an absolute ton of room, because it is a big car. So forget the stuff here in the back. Those are extra parts and things for Prue that when I get back to being able to work on her, I'm going to deal with. But so, well, like I said, whenever I got her, she hadn't run for 50 something years, and so I pulled her original engine and transmission. When I got her, she was pretty much what you would classify as a barn find. Sitting in a field, floors were rusted out. We redid those, but I pulled her original engine and transmission out, and I took Piper's backup Pontiac 400 and built another 461 stroker to go in here. Now, the paint, as you can see here, is chipping. I used Bill Hirsch Pontiac Green. It's the only place that I'm aware of that you can buy original pre-1957 Pontiac Green. Because back in the day, pretty much most all these engines were either red or green. But the Pontiacs were all green. So then in this, I believe in 57, they went to their first sets of Pontiac blue. But anyways, so I have a 350 turbo 350 transmission behind this 461, and I had to get it and install a new aluminum radiator. She had the factory radiator, however, the factory radiator just took a dump on me. So this radiator comes out of an AD, Advanced Design Chevy truck, and GMC for that matter. I went that way because I found, as we have a 49 Chevrolet pickup, that dimensionally it was extremely similar to my Pontiac radiator. The only thing I had to do, as you can see here, was fabricate these brackets, because the AD radiator has the mount at an angle, and the Pontiac is flat into the front. So I built those. So this is a 2400 dual speed single radiator fan. This is designed to be, it's a D'Oreilly fan. It is designed to be the only fan on your vehicle. However, I'm a very big fan of redundancy, and I like mechanical fans. So the other thing, moving along, I put an entirely new wiring harness in here, and Prue hasn't been able to get worked on in some time due to other projects and other requirements. But we are very quickly coming up to what we're going to be doing next and getting back to work on her. Here is the upper heater core, and this supplies heat to the dash and to the defogger. So eventually Prue will be getting probably an old air hurricane unit, because they don't really make air conditionings for these cars. So that's what I will probably be getting, because that's what Piper has, and it's more of a universal fit than a vintage air is. But she also has a front seat heater that's in a heater box below the seat. It's a very interesting shroud. Whenever I pull the front seat out, I will take a picture and show you guys that. But I got from California Pontiac Restorations a install kit that they sell for Tri-5 Pontiacs, which allows you to get dual reservoir brakes and a power booster. So now you have power brakes. Now, factory on these, the master cylinder is all the way down there underneath the steering arm. So I took, and with the remote mount reservoir, I've zip tied the reservoir up here so you can at least get to it. Now I will find a better way to do that shortly, but for the time being, that's what I was able to come up with, and we'll find a better way to do that. So Prue has an entirely new JEGS universal wiring harness. Everything works, and thus far, the times I've driven her, she's done really well. I've taken her to a couple car meets. Here is Central Texas BOP, which me and my girlfriend Lori are members of. And in fact, Prue's first time out to a big event, or to really anywhere outside of being here at the house, was taking her to a BOP event with Phoebe. So now we're gonna get to the plan. So here's the plan. So considering that Phoebe has a Pontiac 350, it's almost entirely stock. I do know that she's got a lifter tick only when she's cold. It seems like it goes away when she warms up. I'm gonna take her and place the cam in it just to get it done. And I'm planning to take the cam that we pulled out of Piper, because the cam in inspection seems to be perfectly fine. I've got it to use. So Prue has, as I mentioned earlier, a 461 stroker. Now, you could in 1956 get a dual exhaust for these cars. However, because Prue's engine transmission is different than stock, in 56, the starter bolted to the transmission, which allowed it to be higher than modern is a relative word, but a modern Pontiac engine is bolted to the block, so it sits lower. Now, I have, that I got off of a company off of eBay, an entire 1956 single exhaust on here, and it has the crossover pipe. And I'm using 1958 Pontiac exhaust manifolds because they have the ports larger than the ones in 56 that match the 6X heads that are on this engine. These heads that are on this engine are actually Piper's original factory heads. So that does seem to make them all sisters, in my opinion, where they all have hand-me-downs. So the plan is, this car seems to have a lot of back pressure, and that's not unexpected for having a large cubic inch engine running into an exhaust that's a bit restricted. So the plan is to pull Phoebe's engine transmission out, pull Prue's engine transmission out. I need to have Prue's transmission serviced, but I'm going to paint that engine 1969 Pontiac blue and paint Phoebe's engine 1956 Pontiac green and do a switch. While that switch is happening, Phoebe is going to get her aftermarket vintage air kit that I mentioned earlier installed. Also, going to be doing a couple suspension repairs and improvements, namely a bigger sway bar. And next she'll be getting her new hood installed, and then we'll be getting ready to get painted. Prue will be getting her brakes adjusted. So as I mentioned earlier, I installed the CPR kit. Well, I've had some issues with it. Namely, it doesn't seem to have the stopping power that it should. And I know that, as anything with these Pontiacs, especially ones that aren't as popular as Piper or Phoebe, you are going to have some things that are just not going to be straight out of the box. And honestly, that's probably that way on most classic cars and aftermarket parts that you buy these days, and just in general. But I need to do some modifications to that. I think that the easiest time to do it will be with the engine out of the vehicle. And I'm going to take the time. 6 years ago, whenever I started this project, I had cleaned up the frame pretty well. It needs to be cleaned up again because she sat outside for a long time. So I'm going to get that taken care of and get her ready also after Phoebe's going to the paint shop. Piper is also going to be getting repainted. She has some rust problems that I'll take and show you here in a moment. As soon as those problems are addressed, which will be done in Fort Worth at a company called Texas Trans-Am, who I've done work with before, and they replaced Piper's top for me. So after the rust gets repaired up there, then I will be getting her to the paint shop also. So we can get Piper and Phoebe done, and then I can focus on working on Prue, and then the upcoming car reveal. You thought you're only getting one car reveal this episode. No. It is 2 for the price of 1 here at the House of Kog today. So, you'll be getting that. Jaime was telling me while he was digging through his 70-year-old garage, he's mumbling something about this red Polo derelict that he had discovered. And so we are going to be heading down to take a look at that. So, yeah, that's where we go next. Here is the rust that I was mentioning a moment ago. So it's in the same spot on both sides, and that's roughly where they made the cut for the top. So I got to get that fixed. And the other thing I believe I neglected to mention earlier is I have new seats on the way for Piper. At least new buns and upholstery that me and Lori are going to attempt to put in. So as you can see, this is vinyl. These seats were done about 18 years ago. 19 years ago. That's been 19 years ago. So they have definitely served their purpose. Now, I converted the rear to cloth at this upholstery shop. However, that upholstery shop closed. And so we're going to tackle doing it ourselves. But I ordered some Lombardi cloth, camel tan, to put in. Because in Texas, this vinyl, even though Phoebe has vinyl seats, Piper's just hug your back better. And with that bolstering, if you want to call that, on the side, it makes your back sweat in no time flat. So we will be getting that changed to cloth and getting, hopefully, rid of sweaty backs. Thanks for joining us this time on the House of Kog. Stay tuned for part 2 of our first fleet update. Due to the amount of material, we thought it'd be best to split it up into 2 parts. So stay tuned, and we'll see you next time.